Hey babes, welcome back to my channel. I really hope you enjoyed my Japan vlog series here on my channel. I really enjoyed filming it, editing it. My travels did take place between mid-March and the end of March. There are a lot of stories and activities that I did not share with you in the vlogs just because I was trying to make each vlog I posted make sense. That's kind of how I did the format of how I edited. So that is why I'm filming one final video for you babes of the whole travel adventure, giving you more information, stories, and fun things that happened while I was in Japan, as well as something that's been requested by you babes, the cost breakdown of my adventure. I am going to break this down day by day for you, so let's get started on the first day of my adventure. So to start off, my adventure was a little weird just because I had my round trip from Florida to Japan and back. That is where my dogs were staying for the 2 weeks that I was gone. So funnily enough, I had a layover in Houston where I live. So essentially I drove to Florida, I spent the night, I had my flight in the morning, took me back to Houston. I had an over 24-hour layover, so I essentially went home and I slept in my own bed before the very long flight to Japan. I believe the direct flight from Houston to Narita Airport was about 12 hours. What makes it worse is I did have a flight delay of about 5.5 hours. This caused a lot of complications with the first chunk of my flight and my travels, but it wasn't terrible. I did spend the time playing Pokemon Go in the airport. It was fun and I was trying to kill time, so that's what I ended up doing with my time. There was multiple issues going on that was causing the delay. First, it was a weather impact, like the wind was an issue for takeoff. And then they realized that there was a issue with the plane, an error code was coming up and they had to like do diagnostics, figure out what was going on, fix the thing. So they did that, and then as soon as they were able to finally get the clear to go, they're like, oh, it's been so long now that we have to change our entire staff because legally they need to have a break. So there was basically 3 separate complications that caused the delay, and all that was provided was a meal voucher for the delay. A lot of people ask what airline I flew through whenever there's a complication. That's usually a piece of information people like to know because some airlines are a little bit more reputable for getting you to the destination without these delays, whereas others seem to have more complications. I was flying with United Airlines, and yes, I could say United Airlines seems to be getting consistently worse and worse with delayed flights for not just weather issues, but technical issues with the plane. I did have a 7-hour layover in Albuquerque last August when I went to visit my very close friend Siren Verde. That was also United Airlines. I like flying through United Airlines, but I am aware that the service they are providing seems to be quite poor at the moment. The flight cost itself was about $1,500 USD for the entire round trip. Of course, this is always going to be your most expensive fee whenever traveling anywhere abroad, especially. To be noted, all of my hotels were booked in advance. I think I booked my hotels at least 2 weeks in advance. I will say I was really excited about booking the flight tickets back in December, but as the time got closer and I was dealing with a lot of work-related things, I was starting to get really antsy about going, to the point where I wasn't even sure if I was gonna go anymore. And I did end up going, and I did end up booking all of my hotels and things. But yeah, it was kind of a weird experience for me for something like I really wanted to do all my life, and then getting to the actual flight, there was a lot of hesitation from myself. I am a bit of a workaholic, so it was really hard for me to put down my work for 2 whole weeks and get out of rhythm of things. And I was also worried how I would be once I got back home, if I was going to get back to work or if I would have lost like all rhythm of things. But that's just a little side piece of information in case you're interested in knowing. I know I did talk about it a lot on my Twitch streams before I stopped streaming back in February, I think it was. Because my flight was super delayed, I wasn't able to pick up my car rental because I was going to be driving the Golden Route, which is basically Tokyo to Osaka and back. A big reason for this was to avoid getting the suitcases on the trains. That sounded really annoying to me, and I thought that the driving experience would be really fun and the countryside would be a very beautiful sight to see. So that was why I opted for a vehicle rental instead of commuting by bus train. I also wasn't able to pick up my SIM card due to this fiasco because the SIM card place closed at like 6 o'clock and the car rental place closed at 8 o'clock. I did not get through security until about 10 o'clock. I think I arrived between 8 and 9 o'clock, somewhere around that time, in Narita Airport. Some of you might want to know how longer flights go and how to deal with going on a plane sitting for hours and hours at a time. I will say it really sucks sitting for that long. It really does suck to have to sit for hours and hours at a time. It is really good to get up and stretch when you can. Usually the excuse of I need to use the bathroom, which is usually really annoying and kind of like awkward too, like asking to go to the bathroom if you're not on an aisle seat and there's strangers in your row, especially when I really like grabbing the window seat because usually I like to like cuddle up in the corner there. I did have a travel companion and we did opt for the window and the middle seats, not the aisle seat. There was one Japanese man who didn't speak too much English next to us, and it was always so awkward asking if we could get up to use the bathroom, but he was very considerate. The food service was fine. In United Airlines, they fed you so much food, like way too much food, honestly. Your girl did have some wine. I had a glass, and then my travel companion got me another glass, and I did end up getting a third glass towards the end there. Yeah, I splurged a bit. I was on vacation. You can't blame me. I had 3 servings of wine on my flight to Japan. It was a 12-hour period, so it wasn't like an insane amount, but yeah, that did happen. Navigating the Narita airport wasn't too bad. We used the airport Wi-Fi there to figure out the game plan, figuring out a lot of this entire travel adventure was figuring things out. You're in another country, things are different there. You have very specific places where you have to walk because they're so orderly there, and then also just figuring out their customs and even going there with like pre-understood knowledge and concepts of things. You still have to figure things out, like the train system and whatnot. Using the airport's Wi-Fi, I was able to figure out where to go to get to the train, and then how many stops and how to navigate that to get to my hotel. It really wasn't that far away. My hotel was located in Narita for the first night, but it was a little confusing. I remember when I was on the platform and the train arrived, I was like, is this the one? Is this the one? Because like you look on the overhead screens above you and they're like, there's different trains that come. So I'm like, I don't know if this is the right one. And there's like a Japanese janitor there, and he spoke plenty English to be able to help, and he was like, yes, that is your train, go ahead and get on it. So thank you so much to that guy for helping me out there. Got on the train. When we got off, walked to the hotel. It was so cold. I was so cold. I was actually surprised because before going to Japan, I went through the weather, and like the weather seemed to be similar to the early mornings in Houston. So I was like, oh, okay, like it's sweater weather, but some of the weather might be like t-shirt weather. So I'm gonna pack a couple of sweaters and a couple pairs of pants, and mostly like skirts and shirts is what I decided on packing. No, it was not that weather at all. It was so cold in Japan during the majority of my travel. It was actually allegedly colder than it usually is around that time of the year, but what can you do? I had already packed. I already had the stuff that I had with me. It's not like I could just change my whole wardrobe. Upon getting to my hotel, I was trying to speak only in Japanese to check in. She asked what the room number was in Japanese, and I started spewing out the numbers in Japanese, and she gave me the whole "Nihongo jousu desu," like your Japanese is really good, and I was like, no it's not, but I am trying, so yay. I'm glad that it's working a bit. I made my way to my hotel, and it was I mean, you guys saw it. It was a very basic hotel. It was a very cheap hotel. I can't remember what it converted to. Actually, this is probably a really good point to give you the apps that you probably want to grab before you're going to Japan, or like at least installing it when you're in Japan. And these apps include UST to JPY, or whatever currency you're using. This is a great way to figure out how much things cost, because when you're trying to estimate it in your head, if you're like super off, or like even like a little bit off, you might make the decision, no, this is actually too expensive, when in reality it's really not. Or you might think something's really affordable because your estimation was off or something. So it's a really good app to grab to just quickly plug in a number if it's something like a souvenir you want to buy and you're not sure. The other app is Google Translate. You can actually take pictures of kanji, which is such a savior, because yes, I did like learn a little bit of kanji because I knew how important it would be, but I did not learn nearly enough kanji to get around. Like I knew like a couple kanji and that was it. Like I could see kanjis that was like for entrance and exit and things like that, but like I did not know enough kanji to get by. Not when like most things that you needed to be able to understand was written predominantly in kanji. Like for instance, paying for parking, which is done completely by machine and there is no operator. So Google Translate is amazing. You take the picture, it translates the text for you, and you're good to go. So I'm going to be listing out my hotel prices throughout this video in JPY, yen, so you can use your own converter to figure out how much that is in your currency. So the first hotel I stayed at was Narita U City Hotel, and it was 7,850 yen for the night. Now when I say that's how much it cost for the night, I did go through these prices more recently, not when I originally booked these hotels. There was a price change and it was very noticeable. Like specifically, this hotel is definitely cheaper right now than it was when I booked it. Why that is, I don't know, but of course prices change, shift, get more expensive, get cheaper all the time. So I am giving you very rough estimates as to how much these hotels did cost, as they did seem to change since I made my bookings. The hotel wasn't bad. It was cute, it was cozy, it was very usable. I mean, you had all your essentials, you had your yukata to sleep in, which I am so happy with this, you guys. I always pack like pajamas and all of my body wash, shampoos, conditioners, because I don't know what the situation is going to be like. At least in America, you're lucky if you get some shampoo and body wash, and even then it's like a tiny little amount usually, like not full-size bottles, and maybe it's like not even like full. Like sometimes they will have the bigger bottles, but they're like pretty much empty. Like they really cheap you out here in America, you guys. In Japan, they do this stuff right. They give you full-sized bottles of body wash, conditioner, shampoo. I mean, they never give you conditioner in America hotels. Never. Not even Canadian hotels. And I've been to a few of those too. Regardless, I did have all of my face washes and things like that, and I didn't want to be carrying them around with me, so I did end up using predominantly my stuff. I just didn't want to waste it, really, is what it came down to. But I didn't have room to pack a lot of my pajamas, and I figured even if I was going to do laundry at least one time, like I had packed like one, maybe two pairs of pajamas. I wasn't sure if that was going to be enough. So I'm really happy that with the yukatas at every single hotel, because I basically use those as pajamas. So you don't really need to pack pajamas if you want to wear those yukatas to sleep in. There wasn't a single hotel that I stayed at that did not have a blow dryer, and a lot of them also give you toothbrush and toothpaste that are disposable, so you don't even need to bring your toothbrush if you don't want to. They're awesome. Also, Japanese love to use the peace sign for when it's okay or good or a yes. Like for a yes, they do a peace sign, and you can too if you want to do that symbol for them. This hotel did smell like cigarettes, and I hate the smell of cigarette, and it's so annoying, but at least I was only staying for one night. and I was checking out to get my car rental and my SIM card. So back to Narita Airport we go. So back at Narita Airport, hadn't eaten yet. I did end up grabbing some food from one of like the grocery convenient-esque stores in the airport. And when I was wrapping up, because I was vlogging it, I had a TV crew come up and talk to me, and I really hope that they didn't publish that super embarrassing awkward video anywhere on the internet. Really, I do hope not. It was so weird. I was not prepared for it. I felt so awkward, and then I was like, like I am kind of like put together because I didn't just come off a 12-hour flight, but like they do this to people who just got off like a 12-hour flight. Like, who wants to be interviewed and put on camera after a 12-hour flight? So I guess they kind of got lucky seeing me because I didn't look disheveled. I literally just woke up and got ready. So I was pretty fresh, but very awkward and a little embarrassed doing that little interview. They essentially asked questions like, why are you here in Japan? What made you interested to go to Japan? I think I said some answers like, oh, I loved Sailor Moon growing up. I really want to see shrines and castles and things like that. And that is what the interview predominantly was. After that, I got my SIM cards into the phone, got my car rental, and let me tell you, their car rentals are really nice. You do have to get the toll pass thing. It's like an insert card reader thing, and then when you go through the tolls, it just reads it that it's there, and then ETC card is what it's called, and then it just adds your total fee. It's really convenient because then you don't have to individually pay for every single one, which would also slow you down immensely in your travels. It just scans you through and you just pay the total when you're finished your trip and returning the car. They make it really handy. One thing that I did learn though is you probably do not want to do a car rental that is not at the airport specifically for tourists to pick up the vehicle, because you will probably be denied if you are a foreigner. Another thing is my driver did need the driver's license translated to Japanese, so you do have to do that in advance before going, and it has to be the right version because there's like a couple different versions floating around, so you have to get the right version and you have to do that in advance. Luckily for me, it was kind of like a walk-in, get it, and you're done, but sometimes you do have to ship it, which can take like 2 to 3 weeks, so you probably want to plan that at like at least like a month in advance to make sure that you're safe. So the car was really easy to work. It was a great vehicle, except the navigation was a little weird. I found using a GPS as well as the car's GPS at the same time was handy, because with the Google GPS, it was a little bit easier to figure out which lane you had to be in for like exits and things like that. Whereas if you're going exclusively with the car's GPS, it was a little harder to figure out. Also, it used various systems to input addresses, but it was very limited because probably it doesn't want you to like just go anywhere. You could only put addresses of specific like hotels and also home addresses, but like not everything was in the system. So it was very limiting on where you could travel to, which is fine because for the most part I was just traveling hotel to hotel. And you could also put their phone number, so you could look up their phone number, because if you had to look up their address, it's really annoying. You have to know their district, their city, everything, and basically I had to like Google all this information, and then you have a list to choose from the card system, and it's like I don't know what prefecture this is, so you have to figure out all that information if you're not going off of just like the telephone number. But again, not all hotels were searchable by their telephone number, so it was a little limited and complicated to get those plugged in. But once you were plugged in, it was very easy to use. And also to navigate back to the drop-off location, you could literally click the home button and it takes you home, which is where you rented the vehicle and where you grabbed it from to begin your trip. Now we are on the road in our car rental, and it was a little challenging to get used to the left and rights. Not really though. I think the biggest challenge was the blinker, which side the blinker was on, because it's on the opposite side as well, and the car windshield wiper kept getting turned on by accident because of this. Otherwise, it was really easy to use. I did find myself navigating to the driver's side where I was like, oh yeah, I have to go to the passenger side, like this is the wrong side when you're going back into the car. So that's kind of funny. The first stop was the Aeon Mall, just because we saw it, we pulled into it, let's go shopping, let's hang out. Where our check-in wasn't until the afternoon anyway, and it wasn't a super long drive to the hotel, so hung out at Aeon Mall for a little bit, grabbed a meal, did some gachapon at the arcade, and then went back on the road and went to my Tokyo hotel where I was going to stay 3 nights. This hotel was the Grand Prince Shin Takanawa Hotel, and it was 36,000 yen per night. It was quite a luxurious hotel, and there was a lot of very formal Japanese businessmen and women at this hotel. Lots of very beautiful women in kimonos, and not too many tourists. Like, there were some tourists clearly, but there were a lot of like very like formal Japanese businessmen and women there. I did feel a little out of place a lot of the time, but this hotel was gorgeous and huge. From the lobby to the hotel size, this place was massive. It was so nice, and honestly, thankfully so. I did end up getting sick on this trip at the very start, and what better place to get sick than a really nice hotel? Not to mention there was a 7-Eleven just down the street, like a few minutes walk, and you're at a 7-Eleven. Get your medicine, get your food, get whatever you need, and it's only a little bit of a walk away. Plus, this hotel had a very beautiful Japanese garden and even a Japanese tea house just outside the hotel, part of the hotel system. It was gorgeous. It was a nice hike through the Japanese garden to the street where you made your way down to the 7-Eleven across the street, and then down just a tad and you're at the station that takes you to Shibuya. The very first day that I was in Tokyo, I explored Shibuya's nightlife a little bit around the streets, checking it out, checked out that famous sidewalk, and I did some shopping for some souvenirs. Predominantly at the Magnet store is where I shopped. I was really cold, and at this point I realized I was not going to survive Japan without getting a coat, so I did make it a mission. Before leaving Tokyo, I was gonna get a winter coat, and I was already starting to get a little sick. I had woken up with a bit of a sore throat, and as the day progressed, I was feeling a little bit chilly and a bit worse. My first night in this hotel, I woke up with a incredibly painful throat. It was so sore. It felt like I was swallowing daggers. It was awful, but I didn't want to waste the trip just because I wasn't feeling well, so I did enjoy the rest of my vacation. I did end up Googling what was going on, and there's so many infections going around Japan when I went. There was COVID, there was strep throat, there was influenza A and B. I'm going to assume that I got one of the influenzas. I certainly did not get strep throat. I didn't have those symptoms, so I'm pretty sure I got one of the influenza variations. You better believe I went to the store and purchased masks because I realized that I could catch a second infection that would probably make me severely ill to the point where I might even need to go to the hospital, so I didn't want to risk that. I did get masks, and I wore them every single time I went on the train. When I went on the train coming home that first night, I was packed in like sardines. It was so skin tight. It was crazy. Pretty sure it was a Japanese man that was behind me that was like dry humping my butt. I don't know if that's for sure the case, but honestly, I wouldn't be surprised. 1, I wanted to avoid rush hour. 2, I wanted to wear a mask on the train. Those were my takeaways, and I hope you do the same when you visit Japan, if you ever do. So the second day I was in Shibuya, I did go to the Shibuya Scramble. I heard this was a newer location that was in Shibuya that was a great place to explore, get souvenirs. I did get a couple of desserts on the first floor. You enter, there's so many bakeries and baked goods, and it just all looks so good. I got a strawberry shortcake and I got a butter biscuit. They were both delicious. You saw me try them in my Japan series. During this day, I really wanted to find the Dagachi bar. This is one of the places I really wanted to go to. It's basically a izakaya, but it is an all-you-can-drink with an all-you-can-eat candy. It's kind of like a candy buffet with unlimited drinks too. So essentially you go there, you pay an entrance fee which covers a certain amount, like a couple of drinks and all-you-can-eat candies, and if you want to eat any of their foods, they had like takoyaki, you could get those too. It would be extra. Their candies were, I would say, like some of them were hit and miss. I would say like the gummies seemed to be very stale for the most part, but some of their other snacks were very delicious. Wish they had some of those here in America. This night, I actually did not find the Dagashi bar. I did end up going the night after my last night in Tokyo just because I couldn't find the bar. I was searching around and just didn't find it. A lot of these bars are like a little bit hidden, so it wasn't like directly off the street. You had to like go up the stairs, and like there it was. Found the Dagashi bar and I had a really good time. Unfortunately, I wasn't feeling so good, so I probably didn't look like I was enjoying myself, but I was. You do get to stay for 2 hours, but I didn't want to travel back to the hotel during rush hour, so I did end up leaving after only like an hour and a bit, and I was not feeling good. It started to rain. It was so windy. It was so cold. I had the chills. I think I already had fever at this point, and then getting to the hotel, I was just feeling so bad. I did end up taking a bath, and the hotel provided you some bath salts, so I used some bath salts in my bath to try to help with my symptoms, and I fell asleep really early. I did have a really bad fever throughout the night, and I know I definitely broke a sweat at least once or twice throughout the night. It was not fun. And waking up, like you could hear like the wind. It was like so windy. It was so loud. It was booming on the windows. Like it was so bad. I was not feeling good. Again, I wasn't going to waste my vacation here, so I got up, I took some Advil, like 2 or 3, and I also made it a mission. I needed to get a coat today. It was my last day in Tokyo. For breakfast, I did try some of those desserts that I had at the Shibuya Scramble, and the earthquake alarm sounded. I was actually in a Discord that with a lot of people who live in Japan, and I was like, I'm scared, what's going on? And they're like, oh, this is like a baby earthquake, you'll be fine, don't worry. We're getting like the alarm systems too in the station. So I realized they overreacted, but it was really scary because the way they did it was like an alarm system through the hotel's messaging system. So it was really scary, and I did feel a bit of a shake like at the very start, but it ended up being nothing. So I'm okay. Getting to the station, I was doing some coat hunting. There was one clothing store that was in this station that I was recommended to find a winter coat, but because of the season that it was, pretty much all of the winter coats were like going out of season, so they weren't available anymore in most clothing stores. When I asked one of the workers, "Doko wa atsukai koto?" or something like that, I was like, where is your warm coats? And she's like, gomennasai, like we don't have any warm coats. And so I left, and I was like, okay, don't worry, it's okay. And I looked for another store. I did find an on sale coat. Even though it was on sale, it was still like a lot. It was closer to like $60 USD, but it was, I don't even think it was like my size. I think it was like really big, but I didn't care. It was like this really long trench coat. Like that's what I wanted. I just wanted something warm. I didn't even care if it was hideous. Like I just wanted to be warm. I was so cold. I had fever. I had chills. I felt like a mess. So I needed this coat. After getting my coat, I did end up going to Moss Burger for a meal. I was so excited to go to Moss Burger because I was studying the Genki textbook, which keeps using references to Moss Burger, which is a restaurant that I'm pretty sure is exclusive to Japan. So I really wanted to try a burger there, and they did have a veggie burger, luckily, because I am pescatarian. So that was so amazing, and it was really good, and I really enjoyed my experience at Moss Burger. Everyone says Moss Burger is also much better than McDonald's. I honestly never had McDonald's in Japan. I had some fries from there and like a Lipton tea. That was like it. So I can't really compare McDonald's to Moss Burger, but everyone says Moss Burger is better. After having that meal, I did end up going to Meiji Shrine, and it was gorgeous. And honestly, so far experiencing Meiji Shrine was my favorite experience in Japan. I wanted to go to Japan for a lot of those nature-esque scenery stuff, like the gardens and castles and shrines. So I loved the shrine experience, and Little did I know that that was just the first mini taste of the nature that was available in Japan, like with all of the gardens and things like that. I was so taken in by the nature that I got to experience, and so much better than being in the crowded city life of Tokyo. After seeing the Meiji Shrine, I did end up going to a Starbucks and getting a hot coffee because the weather was cold. And then I made my way to Shinjuku, where I went to a cat cafe. It was so cute and a lovely experience getting out of the cold. It was an all-you-can-drink. You could buy cat toys as well, and you could even take a nap there. They had like actual beds. They had desks that you could work on. You could go in and literally hang out or chill with the cats or just have a drink with a friend. It was an incredibly cute and cozy experience. It was really funny because there was a couple there and the guy was telling the cat basically to come over, and he was calling it Neko-sama, which for those of you who understand, like sama is like a very like high end to be referring to someone, so he's like referring to this cat as like a god or something. Like, it was really funny, and he really wanted the cat's attention, and these cats, most of them didn't really care to have any interactions. They just wanted to chill. I get it. You're always surrounded by all these people and you're a cat. You want to do your own thing. I get it. But yes, I did end up having 2 nice warm drinks at this cat cafe, and it was a really cozy experience before making my way back to the hotel where I spent my final night in Tokyo. So that was my last day in Tokyo. In the morning, I checked out of this hotel and I drove to Shizuoka, where my next hotel was located. I stayed at Hotel Celeste Shizuoka, and it was 18,900 yen a night. I did check into my hotel rather late and I was really hungry, so the very first thing I ended up doing was getting dinner. I went to Coco's Curry. Coco's Curry is a chain curry restaurant in Japan, and I'm so glad I went there because honestly it was probably one of the yummiest meals I had while being in Japan, and I did get a vegetarian curry. It was so good. There was actually a guy that came in after me, and when he got his food, he put like tissues up his nostrils, and I can only imagine the reason why he did that was because he knew like he was expecting a really spicy curry, because you get to choose the level of spice. And by the way, I didn't talk about this much, but when I was in Shibuya, I spoke predominantly just English. I did try to speak some Japanese, and what ended up happening was I was getting feedback from the employees and things. They did not seem to be very happy with me even trying to speak Japanese. I don't know why. I have ideas based on like some Googling I did, but maybe they thought it was a bit offensive that I thought maybe that their English wasn't so good. That definitely wasn't the case, but maybe it could have also been like they didn't think that you were taking Japanese seriously, so they didn't want you to use like the basic like Japanese that you learn through anime. I just completely stopped trying to use Japanese at all after my Tokyo experience, but then getting to Shizuoka, I realized like nobody speaks English here now that you're not in the direct like tourist locations. So this is where I was really pushed to use my Japanese, but it was getting like hard for me because I was like so nervous and felt so awkward even to try anymore because of like my experience in Tokyo. I feel like the people in Tokyo for the most part have this demeanor about them that are a little bit more stuck up than a lot of other people outside of Tokyo. That was my impression. Certainly maybe not the idea that everybody has of Tokyo citizens, but that's definitely how I felt. Regardless, I had a delicious meal at Coco's Curry. I made my way back to the hotel. Still was feeling really sick, and I went to sleep for the night. In the morning, I did check out Sunpu Castle. It was raining the whole time, but I really wanted to check it out. Shizuoka was a very peaceful and quiet area, but a very pleasant location, and I was very pleasantly surprised too with all of the hidden gems in the area. At Sunpu Castle, I had a very nice time in the tea room there. And the manager came over and gave a second tea that was not even paid for. So that was very, very nice of her. There was going to be a really long trek to Kyoto, a very long drive in very foggy weather. So long, in fact, that I did need to make a rest stop, and the rest stops in Japan are so bonkers. They're like shopping district plaza things. Like seriously, they have a food court, they have shopping where you can buy souvenirs and snack boxes, and they have big, very clean bathrooms for women and men. Like, it's just crazy how gorgeous and huge their rest stops are. Like, cannot compare to America's rest stops at all. Mind you, I went to like the biggest ones, like not like the mini rest stops, but the big ones are the ones you want to stop at if you're going to be stopping at rest stops. I ended up ordering a ramen at one of these rest stops, and oh, let me tell you, I thought I was getting myself a vegetarian ramen, but no, it was not. I thought it was because it was miso broth based, so the broth was going to be okay, but it had meat in it, so I had to give traveling companion my meal. So my traveling companion ended up having to try to finish 2 servings of ramen. Didn't happen, but close enough. And I think I completely stopped trying to order anything. I wasn't positive was pescatarian after that, because I know it's a really big no-no to waste food in Japan, especially because the chef might think that you didn't like the food. So yeah, this day I was still feeling really, really sick, but I was very excited to go to Kyoto, my Ryokan stay in Kyoto, where I was going to have a private bath. And I was very hopeful that the private bath was going to help with my symptoms of feeling sick. Upon arriving, it was a little challenging figuring out the parking situation, because there was parking right at the hotel and there was a lot of parking around. We parked a little bit down the street and then went to the Ryokan, and this old man helped us check in. He spoke fluent English, and he even went outside and waited the entire time for us to go to the vehicle, bring it over, and gave us a parking spot, like held it for us. And it was cold, and that guy was a great guy. He was awesome. Thank you so much for that. Once back inside of the Ryokan establishment, we were toured over to our room where we were going to stay, and we got to see our room. We got a little tea and snack as like a welcome snack tea sort of thing, and it was so cute and delicious and yummy. The bath looked phenomenal. I was so ready. I ended up going to 7-Eleven down the street to get some dinner and drinks because I wanted to have a bit of a hoorah party, and I was very hungry. One of the meals I ended up picking out, I didn't look at it very carefully. It was a noodle dish that did not have meat, but it did have a bunch of like fish, like white fish with black eyeballs in it. Apparently it's a very common very Japanesey meal, and if I did see those fish with the eyeballs, I would not have purchased it. I felt so bad. It did go to waste. Sorry. Did end up getting a really cheap shochu, which is a very common Japanese liquor, as well as some drinks for mixing. Upon arriving back at the Ryokan, you do have to give your key before you go, because it's like a traditional like key. It's not like a digital one. So of course they don't want you to like leave with the key and like maybe like make a duplicate. Of course it makes sense. Getting back into the Ryokan, they made our beds on the floor. They're the traditional ones where you sleep in kind of like a sleeping bag on the floor. Honestly, the sleep was great, phenomenal. You think it wouldn't be. The floor was all heated and everything. Like, it was really nice. The food and drink was amazing. They did have their own drink menu, but I didn't want to spend all that much money, so I did just have what we got from 7-Eleven and had a phenomenal bath. It was such a great night. The Ryokan that I stayed at was called Kyoto Nanzenji Ryokan Yachiyo, and with the private bathroom, it was 194,000 yen. It was a very expensive Ryokan, but totally worth it, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. That experience was a must Very good experience. In the morning, I did check out the Heian Shrine and Gardens before leaving Kyoto. I really didn't spend that much time in Kyoto. I would have wished to have spent more time, but also I wanted to spend that time at the Ryokan because it was just such an amazing hotel experience. It was phenomenal. The next trek was to Osaka, getting to the final destination of that golden route. The hotel I stayed at was the APA Hotel and Resort, which was 11,000 yen. And it was a very nice hotel. It was the smallest hotel I stayed at, and yet I really liked the experience. It was kind of crazy because when you arrive at the hotel, there is a parking facility next to the hotel, but you give them your vehicle and they take the vehicle up, so you don't get access to your vehicle at all. Now, this is where a mistake was made because the envelope with all the yen was accidentally left in the vehicle. Now, I did convert $2,000 USD to yen, and I did end up having to withdraw extra yen since this mistake happened. Now I have a lot of extra yen left over, but honestly, I think I 100% spent under 2,000 yen, and I splurged with souvenirs, you guys, like at the Pokemon store, at the Shonen Jump store. Like, I bought whatever I really wanted. Really. And even after all of that, I had a decent amount left over. Honestly, you could probably get away with spending 1,500 USD and still being able to splurge when you're in Japan. The hotel that I stayed at had a 7-Eleven on the downstairs floor and a breakfast and brunch buffet. They had two different buffets, one during the breakfast hours and another during the later breakfast lunch hours, and they were both phenomenal. I really loved the experience dining at this hotel, and I ate breakfast here both of the mornings that I stayed here. The first day in Osaka, I will admit, I was not feeling good, and I actually crashed in the hotel closer to 4 o'clock, so I didn't really get to explore anything. I was just really run down and not feeling well. Like, even the morning of waking up from the Kyoto Ryokan, I was not feeling well. Probably didn't help that I drank the night before. I will say that and I'd admit to that. Regardless, I did take the first day in Osaka to rest. Day 2 is where the fun in Osaka really begins. Location number 1 was Deer Park. It was so cute to see all those deers, bout them, feed them. I fed them so much food. They were all so cute. Some of them were very scared and skittish, you could tell, but they were all adorable, and I actually heard that a lot of them are still like undernourished, so hopefully a lot of tourists come to Japan and feed lots of deer to fatten them up for winter. They had the cutest Nara Park souvenir store after leaving Nara Park, and I had to do some gachapon playing. There was a girl next to me with her partner, and they were doing gacha too, and she was so excited to see what I got and asking me what I wanted and then what she was gonna get. It was kind of a fun experience with that. And then after that, I really didn't spend too much time in Nara. I went directly to Dotonbur, where I was going to spend the rest of my evening. I did end up doing a lot of souvenir shopping, and I got some things and tried some food at the Kura Revolving Sushi. It was delicious, and I really enjoyed my time. My last and final day in Osaka, I went to Osaka Castle. It was so busy. I did want to check out the castle, but the line was crazy. I even heard another tourist talking to a group of people, and he said he had never seen it that busy before, so I opted not to try to wait in line to get into the castle, especially by the time I was trying to go. It was like getting closer to sunset, and I didn't want to be traveling in the dark. I did end up walking to Osaka Castle from the hotel. I did see a shrine on the way, and I also got some coffee because that day, let me tell you, it was so windy, it was so cold, it was not very comfortable at all to be walking that day. It was awful weather, That's why I had to make a pit stop to get some coffee. It was a delicious hot drink and it got me through the rest of the trip to Osaka Castle. For dinner, I did eat poke, which they had a poke restaurant on the east side of the castle area. It was so delicious. It was probably most definitely the best poke I've ever had. It was so good. I loved it. It was amazing. From here, went back to Dotonbur because my traveling companion still needed to try some Wagyu beef. Did, and it was delicious, allegedly. Obviously, I didn't try any. And melon pond was also tried. I still, to this day, I don't know what the place is called because it was just like a man standing in the middle of the street offering these up. But I will read the text on the wrapper of my melon pond. I have a picture here. Share happiness taste. Actually, maybe that's the name of the restaurant. I don't know if it's just text or actually the name of the restaurant. Anyway, it says, happiness is a glass of water, transparent without taste. When you need it most, she is then honey. Happiness is a song, a simple, meaningful. And that's the text. Dotonbur, in my opinion, was a far better experience than Tokyo. I think the people are way more awesome. I think the nightlife there is so much more vibrant and fun. I think the food there is way better than Tokyo. If you're going to Japan, don't just go to Tokyo and think that that is it. No. Go to Osaka, go to Dotonbur. You're gonna really enjoy your time there. Hands down, so much better than Tokyo. That was my last night in Osaka. My next hotel's location and destination is in Kakegawa, where I stayed at the hotel LiveMAX Kakegawa for 4,700 yen. Getting to Kakegawa, I had no idea how much there was to do and see. I really thought it was just like Shizuoka, I thought it was just stay the night, sleep, and then leave to the next destination. No, there is so much to do in Kakegawa and Shizuoka. Kakegawa has a Kakegawa castle, and when I arrived, there's only an hour or so left before it closed. So as soon as I checked in, I made my way over to the castle where I was going to explore it. It wasn't that big, but it was really cool to see, and I'm really glad that I went and I was able to make it. And oh my god, there is such a gorgeous sunset that I got to see, and I even caught on camera. I really apologize, my exposure was set way too high, but I hope you're able to enjoy the sights nonetheless. Also, yes, I know my autofocus and focus on my camera was so bad. There are some corrections that I looked at and made, and more corrections that I would be checking in the future to see if I could make my vlogs better. I learned so much from vlogging in Japan in general, especially during the editing process, is really when I was able to figure out all of the, okay, I messed up here, this could have been better, this could have been planned better. Again, my whole trip, I didn't really have anything planned other than hotels. So I had no idea how I was going to go about filming either. So it was quite the mess, but I hope it ends up being a beautiful mess in the end product at the very least. After checking out the castle, I did end up going to an izakaya for dinner, just getting some skewers, and ooh, that was so awkward. Upon entering, immediately I was like, oh yeah, my Japanese is about to be tested. I seated myself right in front of the owner of the place, and he was trying to speak to me, and I was trying to answer him and work the menu, and I did end up getting some delicious drinks and some delicious tofu. Oh, it was so good. I felt so bad though with how limited my Japanese was, but I was able to navigate. I think his sister is a little grumpy though, because when he went to give her second drinks, he asked her to do it and she never did. So he was like, did you get your drinks in Japanese? And I was like, no. So he got us the drinks, and upon leaving, he ended up running out and then bowing, like thanking for coming. And I was like, thank you so much for the food, it was so good. And yeah, in the future, I would definitely say if you're gonna go to one of those really hole in the wall izakayas, especially when you're like outside of the main touristy areas. Make sure you know enough Japanese to communicate, or at least like use those Google Translate apps to help you along. There was a group of Japanese people in there, and I don't know if they're like laughing at us for like even trying, but they're like, oh, like they're using a Google Translate. And it was really awkward because like they definitely were like responding and talking about us while being there, so it was a little embarrassing, and I'm definitely really embarrassed about a lot of my Japanese attempts in Japan. But again, I didn't know what the situation was going to be like. I went there assuming no one would really speak any English. Turns out if you're in a lot of the touristy areas, they know English quite fluently, but a lot of the areas in between have zero English, so you really do need to learn Japanese if you're gonna go to Japan. I highly recommend it. There was also a Kakegawa Kachoen zoo, so I really want to check this place out. So I did see this place in the morning, and oh my gosh, I think the Kakegawa Kachoen zoo was my favorite experience in all of Japan. I'm not even kidding. It was so much fun. I love the experience so much. You arrive and there's like a bunch of penguins diving in the water. There's so many owls. There's so many really cool looking birds, and then they have a themed cafe where you can get a bird looking dessert. You can get a hot cocoa. It was so much fun. They had shows, you could feed birds, they had lotuses and like all of these really beautiful zen like water lily pad style garden area. It was amazing. I really loved my experience here. And yes, some birds did try to eat my hairband, this one in particular. I did need to speed up my time at the zoo. It took a really long time to get through. It was really big. You'd be surprised how many sights to see there really are, and the entrance fee was dirt cheap. Like, it was really affordable. I did do a lot of souvenir shopping there. I got so many things, including magnets and other things too. I had to. Like, it was my favorite place by far. But then I had to make an incredibly long driving trek for the rest of that day. We drove to Yokohama to my final 2-night hotel. This hotel was the Yokohama Royal Park Hotel, and it was 20,550 yen. It was not cheap, but it was by far the most epic hotel, other than the Ryokan, epic hotel stay ever. You get a sky view, a giant window sky view. You get a large, luxurious room, a huge dining table, a very large bathroom with a shower and a bathtub. It was phenomenal. I really loved this hotel so much. I couldn't spend much time taking in the hotel. I needed to drive all the way back to Narita Airport to drop off my vehicle, and I was really scared I was going to miss the cutoff time because it was getting late, and again, this place closes at 8 o'clock, so it was go time. Drop off that vehicle, was able to make it. They took us back to the Narita airport where I was supposed to get a shuttle that would take me directly back to the Yokohama hotel. That's how awesome this place is. They had connections all the way to Narita airport. So incredibly convenient. However, the whole system of like getting the shuttle, you did have to pay for it and you had to buy your tickets. I literally found the line and stood there waiting right when the shuttle bus came, but they didn't accept us because they didn't allow you to pay right there. You had to go in and get your ticket. So it was really annoying. That was the second last shuttle, so I had to make sure I was gonna get the last shuttle. Got the ticket, had Subway in the hotel, did more souvenir shopping, played more Pokemon Go in that airport, and then caught the last shuttle. Did bring home from the little grocery shopping area, convenience store there, some shochu and drinks to mix and some food. Went back to the hotel and had a very fun and chill evening. The first day in Yokohama, it was so still warm. I was so happy with the weather. The first thing that I did was go to the Gundam factory, and I went to the Gundam factory cafe, so I got to see the whole Gundam operations scene. And then I went into the cafe. The line was so long. I waited probably like 2 hours to get seated. The food was average. I mean, a lot of the things were already sold out by the time you got to order, even though it was like first thing in the morning. And then I think the most delicious thing that I had, since I mean I don't even eat meat, so I'm not getting a burger, was probably the bean paste treats. Those were actually really good. They're like steam bean paste buns. They're really good. They had themed music playing. There's also a Gundam museum, but the line was so long. There was a popcorn stand right outside, and I did get a popcorn souvenir bag with popcorn in it, so that was my only souvenir takeaway from the cafe at Gundam Factory, but I was still very happy with that. It was like one of the biggest places I wanted to go, going to Yokohama. Then I made my way to the mall where I was going to shop at Shonen, the Shonen store there and the Pokemon store there. Of course, I had to go to these stores again. They had different stuff, and let me tell you, the stuff that they had here versus in Shibuya were better. So if you're going to be shopping at the Pokemon Center and the Shonen store, go to Yokohama. They're so much better. However, the lineup to get into the Shonen store was a long line. I waited in line. It took at least 30 to 45 minutes. It was quite the wait, but it was well worth the wait. I splurged a lot on souvenirs here, only things that I really wanted and also that I knew was going to fit in my suitcase, because again, I had so much yen because I took out way more than I needed, especially with the car getting stuck situation and withdrawing even more yen. But I am very happy with the souvenirs that I did end up getting in Japan. I did end up doing even more souvenir shopping that evening, and that was the end of my adventure in Japan. So I ended up making my way to the airport in the morning. I got the shuttle and I went back to America. For those of you who are wondering, the average hotel cost was about $150 for me, but again, I got that really expensive Ryokan, and 2 of my hotels, the ones that I spent like longer stays at too, like a 3-night stay and then a 2-night stay, were more expensive, luxurious hotels. You can definitely spend a lot less on hotels, probably closer to $65, $70 a night if you're looking for the cheaper hotels. Honestly, you do not have to go all out. But yes, that was my experience in Japan. I really hope you enjoyed these additional stories and my perspective of how I experienced Japan. If you like this video and if you like this series, please give me a big thumbs up and subscribe down below, turning on that notifications bell so you don't miss an upcoming adventure that I might go on in the near future. And I certainly have to go to Japan again one day, and maybe some other places too, and bring you along for the adventure, and of course improve my vlogging and my editing. Well, guys, that's it for me today, and I'll see you again very soon. Bye for now, till next time.